Oh, I started off the last video complaining about my channel manager and how he's on holiday and how happy I was that he's not here, but please forgive me. I can't do this political video without you. Yeah, if everyone could just leave a comment for my channel manager who is on holiday and I hope is having a great time. If you could just leave a comment and say to please forgive Faye for her ill-thought comments. Her mum had died 11 years ago and she was celebrating her mum's birthday. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Bengali politics, and I don't want to make too many jokes because my channel manager's not here. We are going to be doing this old school, like it's 1955 or something. And I'm just going to be reading off a piece of paper. A little bit of a disclaimer. I have something called dyscalculia, which is something very difficult to say as a word, but it just means that, like, numbers don't work in my brain. Sometimes they jump around, so I might read a number incorrectly, but I promise when this video is edited, when my channel manager is back, the screenshots will be there, because I've put it into a document that he can use to put the screenshot into the video. The screenshot will be there, and don't take my word for it, take the screenshot's word for it, okay? Like, I can't read numbers, my brain doesn't do numbers, but I promise I will do my best today. I will do my level best with the numbers. RNG goddess, please give me the strength to read these numbers. Just for context, I wrote up all of this, well, rather researched all of this because it's mainly newspaper cuttings and then me just giving commentary on them. I collected all of this on the 7th, the 7th. See, it's already fucking happening. The 19th of July. 2024, and I'm recording on the 19th of July 2024 with no makeup, no hair, because it's too hot today and I can't be arsed. But if you aren't aware, there's been a lot of unrest that's been happening in Bangladesh, and I do want to make a longer context video for, like, the Bangladeshi independence, as well as my own sort of reflexive bit about, like, where I come from. Like, I'm Bengali, but obviously there's a lot of context to that. I live in the UK, how did that happen, etc. I want to go over all of that stuff in a longer video that this will be like a section of. Usually, like, what I did for the video about Palestine was that I recorded a few videos and then put them together, or my channel, my wonderful, lovely, beautiful, amazing, spectacular, so on channel manager did. He put it all together for me. This channel only has success because of that wonderful man. So yeah, I really miss you. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday, and I hope you'll be back on time, because I'm really struggling out here, especially with these political videos, because I really don't want to make a mistake, and I always make mistakes. Anyway, I'm going to be using sources that are generally accepted to be, reputable sources. And we're going to get on with this because there's quite a bit to cover today. And I don't want to waste too much more of your time with waffle. So we're going to start with a Human Rights Watch article. It was a World Report that was posted on the 11th of January 2024, and it just gives you a little bit of context for where Bangladesh was at the start of the year. So I've taken out some excerpts, and I will leave all of the links and stuff in the description, in the sources section, if you would like to go and read them yourself. Obviously, I'm only reading excerpts, but the full articles and stuff will be there on their website. So on the 11th of January, the World Report 2024 Rights Trends in Bangladesh stated that security forces carried out mass arrests of opposition members and in some cases responded to protests with excessive force. This is before the events of the current student processes. This is at the beginning of the year that they're reporting on. That presumably happened in 2023. The arrests appeared to reflect senior police officials' plans stated in leaking... This is going to be a long one without my channel manager. The arrests appeared to reflect senior police officials' plans stated in leaked meeting minutes to ensure convictions of opposition members so they would be disqualified from contesting elections. The main opposition is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, estimated that half of its 5 million members faced politically motivated prosecution. On September 14th of 2023, prominent human rights defenders Adilur Rahman Khan and ASM Nasiruddin Elan of the Dhaka-based rights group Adhikar were sentenced to 2 years in prison for a 2013 report on indiscriminate and excessive use of force against protesters. Also in September, the government replaced the Digital Security Act 2018, or the DSA, with the Cyber Security Act 2023, or the CSA, after facing criticism for the use of the DSA to stifle freedom of expression and suppress dissent. However, the new law retains many of the DSA's abusive elements. The country continues to host nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees amidst rising violence by armed groups and senior donor funding shortages. Bangladesh authorities have made conditions increasingly hostile in the camps, and hundreds of refugees have embarked on perilous boat journeys to seek protection elsewhere. Sorry if you can hear the pages. This is a very rudimentary, if I might say, setup. But continuing, according to Bangladeshi human rights monitors, security forces have carried out over 600 enforced disappearances since 2009, while some people were later released, produced in court, or said to have died during an armed exchange with security forces. Nearly 100 people remain missing. The government has refused to take up the offer from the United Nations to help establish a specialized mechanism to investigate allegations of enforced disappearances in line with international standards. Instead, Bangladesh authorities continue to harass and intimidate victims' families. Immediately after the United States Immediately after the United States designation of human rights sanctions against the notoriously abusive Rapid Action Battalion in 2021, some abuses dropped for a period. However, security force abuses, including enforced disappearances, appear to have resumed. Human rights monitors also have noted a disturbing rise in allegations of torture in custody. Allegations of torture in Bangladesh are rarely investigated or prosecuted. Only one case of torture resulted in convictions under Bangladesh's Torture and Custodial Death (Prevention Act) since its passage a decade ago, according to media reports. Bangladesh has ignored repeated requests from the UN Committee Against Torture to follow up on its recommendations as required. The committee's recommendations include the independent monitoring of all detention sites and investigation of all allegations of torture or ill treatment by law enforcement officials. Now, on the topic of freedom of speech, they wrote, journalists faced increasing attacks for exercising their right to freely criticize government policies and practices, undermining the conditions for open political debate ahead of elections. Newsrooms were further driven towards self-censorship, with government authorities demanding that they remove news articles from their website and increasing judicial targeting of major outlets. Did I say that right? I hope I said that right. On March 30th, 2023, authorities arrested Shamsuzzaman Shams, a correspondent for the leading national newspaper Pratham Alo, accusing him of tarnishing the image of the nation in an article about the cost of living in Bangladesh. Matiur Rahman, the editor, and others were also sued under the DSA in relation to the same article. In a speech in Parliament, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina castigated Pratham Alo, the newspaper, as the enemy of the ruling Awami League party, democracy and the people of the country. Following her statement, the Pratham Alo offices were vandalized. Prominent journalists and activists such as Shahidul Alam and Razina Islam continue to face charges under the DSA. In a letter to the Bangladesh government, the UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression, Irene Khan raised the concerns that the CSA contains vague and overly broad provisions which criminalize a large variety of legitimate forms of expression. These provisions have been reproduced from Digital Security Act, although they contravene international human rights law, have been used wrongly against journalists, human rights defenders, and scholars, and have led to severe negative human rights consequences, including prolonged detention, deaths in custody, and attacks on media freedom. So that gives you an overall landscape of what it's like for the free press in Bangladesh. I don't know, I hope that paper rustling wasn't too loud. Because I'm dealing with paper, please forgive me. But that should give you an overview of what freedom of expression and free speech is like in Bangladesh. For context, and in a later video that I will elaborate on, neither the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party or the Awami League are good political parties. Neither of them are. They are the major parties in Bangladesh, but unfortunately both of them are just really, really bad with this kind of stuff, with censorship, with like prosecuting free speech, with arresting people, torturing people probably, and all sorts of other kind of criminal acts that, you know, in the free world would be seen as just like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't do that. The free press is necessary for everyone to consume. People should be able to say whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want, especially if it's a news outlet that is confirming its sources and telling you the news. So onto the labour rights section of this article. We haven't even got into the student protests yet. We'll probably get into that a little bit later, but I want to go over this first because I do believe that society is structured from the bottom. And who is at the bottom? The working class. So if society is structured at the bottom, we have to look at all of the people who are at the bottom and how they are currently living under the conditions that exist. And we're going to talk about labour rights first in Bangladesh. So on June 25th, union leader Shahidul Islam was beaten to death after he visited a factory to secure unpaid wages for the factory's workers following a pattern of targeted attacks against labour organisations in Bangladesh. Shahidul Islam's murder underscored the inadequacy of the social audits and certifications that brands and retailers use to monitor working conditions in factories and their failure to adequately prevent and respond to threats to workers trying to organize independent unions. The Bangladesh authorities have yet to amend the labor laws to protect workers' freedoms of association and collective bargaining in line with International Labour Organization conventions and recommendations, including to curb anti-union tactics by managers and assaults on independent union organizations. In November, the government raised the minimum wage for garment factory workers from $75 to $113 per month. I can't even fucking fathom that. In November, the government raised the minimum wage for garment factory workers from $75 to $113 per month following massive protests. The protesters had been calling for an increase to $208 a month, which is still far below a livable wage estimated by Bangladesh think tanks. Despite the high prevalence of sexual harassment at work in Bangladesh, the 2006 Labour Act does not define or effectively prevent sexual harassment at work, which is really fucking horrifying because most garment workers are women. The authorities, at least in Bangladesh, the authorities have yet to ratify the ILO Violence and Harassment Convention, in parentheses C-190, which requires comprehensive protections to end violence and harassment, including gender-based violence at work. Let's talk about women's and girls' rights. Women in Bangladesh continue to have little recourse to seek protection or services or access justice for domestic violence. Bangladesh continues to have one of the highest rates of child marriage in the world, with a shocking 51% of girls married before the age of 18, and has the shameful distinction of being one of the only countries in the world to have legalized child marriage in recent years. Women and girls face widespread sexual violence with little recourse and protection in Bangladesh. It is estimated that fewer than 1% of rape cases are investigated by the police, and fewer than that 1% leads to conviction. I'm going to read that sentence again in case I misunderstood. I'm just going to read the sentence plainly instead of interpreting it. In Bangladesh, it is estimated that fewer than 1% of rape cases investigated by the police leads to conviction. That's the line. The next section is about sexual orientation and gender identity. While Bangladesh has taken important steps towards protecting hijras, authorities force them to undergo abusive medical examinations to legally recognize their gender identity. For context, in South Asia, hijra refers to an identity category for people assigned male at birth who develop a feminine gender identity. On August 12th, 2023, police forced 8 hijras to strip naked after they were arrested in Dhaka on charges of extortion. The police then presented them to the media, saying that the detainees had disguised themselves as hijra in order to extort people. Same-sex conduct is criminalized in Bangladesh, and LGBT people continue to face harassment and violence with little protection from the police. Now, obviously the question of religion definitely comes up in this, but I want to cover Islamization in terms of Bangladesh in the later video because it's a big topic, and this is already a big topic. I mainly want to focus on the circumstances of Bangladesh currently, as they currently stand, and also just cover the student protests that have been happening since the beginning of July. We've spoken about labor rights, and now we're speaking about minorities. So it's important for us to address minorities in these circumstances because they are usually the most vulnerable people in a community under the supervision of a government. They are usually the most vulnerable, and the way in which they are being treated is a reflection of how, not just how the government views them, but also how society views them and how society treats them. If minorities in a country are being protected as well as cared for, it's quite a logical assumption that everyone above that line is being cared for. Whereas if the minorities in a country are not being cared for and their needs are not being met, they are not being recognized as people by the general populace, you can probably assume that other abuses are happening up the line. That's just how I think about it anyway. Next part of this article is about disability rights, and then I think the last part of this article specifically is about the refugees. So I've been holding the mic away from my phone. My face. Hang tight, we're getting there. Disability rights. In June 2023, police attacked people with disabilities who were protesting to increase their social welfare monthly allowance from... This is fucking shameful. It's fucking shameful. I can't even read fucking numbers, and even I find it shameful. Like, I shouldn't be making jokes. It's shameful. It's so fucking shameful. Shame, shame, shame. Who were protesting to increase their social welfare monthly allowance from 850 Dhaka or $7 to 5,000 Dhaka, which is $45 on a monthly basis. That's what they were protesting for. The government did not increase the monthly allowance despite commitments to do so. Human Rights Watch found that Bangladesh authorities failed to ensure that people with disabilities and older people had access to protection services and infrastructure during unprecedented flooding in northern Bangladesh in June 2022. Refugees. The nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh face growing restrictions by the authorities. Refugees describe new barriers to education, livelihoods, and movement. Camp authorities resumed harassing and evicting Rohingya shop owners, including by destroying their stores. Bangladesh authorities have relocated 30,000 Rohingya to the isolated Silt island of Basan Shar, where they risk food and medicine shortages, flooding, waterborne diseases, drowning, and injuries due to cyclones and rising sea levels. Amid surging violence by armed groups and criminal gangs in the camps, Bangladesh authorities have failed to provide protection, maintain security, or prosecute those responsible. Refugees have reported facing layers of barriers to police, legal, and medical assistance. The 2023 UN Joint Response Plan for the Rohingya humanitarian crisis has received less than 1/3 of the $876 million sought in donor contributions. The funding shortfall has led the World Food Programme to cut Rohingya food rations by a third since February of 2023, down from They've cut it down from $12 to only $8 per month per person. Rohingya and humanitarian workers reported that the ration cuts were already having medical and social consequences. Bangladesh authorities contend that the repatriation of Rohingya is the only solution, refusing to support sustainable solutions to ensure safety, health, and livelihoods in the camps, and freedom to move outside the camps, the prerequisite for productive self-sufficiency and integration. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, reported that 300,000 out of the more than 400,000 refugee children were enrolled in classes teaching the Myanmar curriculum, but their education was not accredited. The government has initiated steps with the Myanmar junta. I'm unsure what that word means. The government has initiated steps with the Myanmar junta to return Rohingya to Rakhine State under a pilot project that has been marked by coercion and deception. In March, the UN High Commissioner said, "In Bangladesh, I regret the increasing incidence of political violence coupled with arbitrary arrests of political activists and ongoing harassment of human rights defenders and media personnel in the build-up to elections this year." The Human Rights Watch also released another article on the same day, 11th of January 2024, called "Bangladesh Repression, Security Force Abuses Discredit Elections." So this goes a bit into the activities of the political parties, so stay with me. The Awami League-led government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina arrested over 8,000 leaders and supporters of the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the BNP, ahead of elections in an overt attempt to incapacitate the competition and disqualify opposition leaders from participating. Many were allegedly disappeared when police arrested and kept them in unlawful detention for days or weeks before eventually producing them in court. According to Bangladeshi human rights monitors, security forces have carried out more than 600 enforced disappearances since 2009. And nearly 100 people remain missing. Human rights monitors have also noted a disturbing rise in allegations of torture in custody. Enforced disappearances reduced significantly after the US government placed the Rapid Action Battalion, an armed law enforcement agency, under sanctions. So, for reference, stuff like political corruption has been happening in Bangladesh for a very, very long time. I would say they have probably been happening since before I was born. And as I mentioned, there's no sympathy for the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party. Like, yes, they shouldn't go missing. They shouldn't be arrested for opposing the Awami League. They shouldn't be tortured or killed or whatever. But both of those parties have acted in these ways through their times in government. And it's really, really unfortunate because I feel like it leaves the people of Bangladesh in such a political deadlock because they only have these two parties to really choose, and they police the media, they police the people, they police everything, as well as each other and probably themselves. But on the 9th of January 2024, Al Jazeera posted an article called "Hasina Remains the High Priestess of Bangladesh's Dynastic Democracy." And in their article, they have said, it has been said that why do I fuck it up right at the beginning? It's so annoying. It has been said that for the past 15 years, Bangladesh's elections have been so skewed in favor of the ruling Awami League, they are enough to make North Korea's Kim Jong-un squirm with envy. An unfair comparison perhaps, but Sunday's results, where the party, led by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, secured 222 seats out of 300, are enough to make even the most unbiased among us raise a skeptical eyebrow. More recently, on October 28th of 2023, the massive anti-government protest that turned violent signalled a resounding and systematic crackdown on dissent ahead of the elections. On that day, hundreds of thousands of opposition supporters demanded Hasina step down and the installation of a neutral caretaker government. Tens of thousands of protesters, including senior leaders, were arrested and thrown in jail following speedy trials. They included those who had not even been involved in the protests, but instead had cases against them dating back more than a decade. Authorities claim that they were cracking down on violence, but human rights groups defined that happened as a violent autocratic crackdown ahead of the election. I'm having a really hard time reading this. The road to a one-party state has been a steady one, with Sheikh Hasina, the world's longest-serving female prime minister, being placed at the helm of the country for the fourth consecutive term and for all intents and purposes unchallenged. Ironic for the daughter of the country's founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who, along with her bitter rival, former Bangladesh National Party leader Khaleda Zia, fought so hard for years for multi-party democracy and an end to military rule. That does not downplay the BNP's own history, which I've referenced before, of oppression and attacks on democracy. During its two-term rule between 1991 and 96, as well as 2001 and 2006, it was confronted with many of the accusations currently faced by the current Awami League: corruption, human rights abuses, suppression of opposition groups, and more. With what is more, the party is tarnished with a history of being born out of a military dictatorship. It was founded by Zia's late husband, Ziaur Rahman, an army chief of staff who was president of Bangladesh from 1977 until his assassination in 1981. The BNP, or Bangladesh Nationalist Party, has in the past also joined forces with Jamaat-e-Islami, a conservative party that did not support Bangladesh's independence in 1971 and has made much headway in the ballot box. The BNP's current acting chairman, Tariq Rahman, is a convicted criminal, albeit on charges his party says are politically motivated, and living in exile in London. It is a track record that does not bode well for a party desperate to regain power. The article continues a little bit and says the denouncements of this year's stage-managed election echo of those of 2014 and 2018. Back then, little action was taken, and once the dust had settled, Hasina was welcomed into the international fold. Admittedly, in an era where she had the support of many of her countryfolk and was credited for turning Bangladesh into one of the fastest growing economies in the region, combating terrorism and providing shelter for more than 1 million Rohingya refugees. Now, though, times have changed, Hasina's popularity has waned, largely due to the financial hardships her people are facing, but also because little doubt is left that she has instrumentalized the state machinery to cling onto power. On May 1st of this year, 2024, Amnesty released an article called "Bangladesh Garment Workers Must Receive Rights-Based Compensation and Justice Immediately." Last month marked the 11th anniversary of the collapse of Rana Plaza, which left more than 1,100 garment workers dead and thousands injured. The collapse was preceded by a deadly fire in Tazreen Fashion's factory 5 months earlier, resulting in the death of at least 112 workers trapped by the blocked fire exits and padlocked factory premises. Both disasters in Dhaka region, caused by wholly negligent workplace monitoring, were shocking examples of business-related human rights abuses. They exposed the human cost of systemic lack of regulation of corporate activities and the desperate need for improved occupational health and safety in line with international standards on business and human rights for all workers in Bangladesh. Nadia Rahman, who is the Amnesty International's Deputy Regional Director for South Asia, said most garment workers are still fighting for decent wages in an industry that brings the most revenue to Bangladesh, and paying a heavy price for fighting for their rights. On the 2nd of May, the Middle East Monitor, and this is a little bit of an ironic article that I've included for the context of the next section of the video, Middle East Monitor published an article on the 2nd of May 2024 that is titled "Bangladesh Slams US Over Raids on Pro-Palestinian Student Protests." Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina today criticized the US government over recent police raids on pro-Palestine student protests on university campuses. Hasina Begum, are you good? Before I even read the rest of the act, are you good? What the actual fuck? How can you say one thing here and then do a completely other thing in your own fucking country that you're in charge of? Anyway, Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina today criticized the US government over recent police raids on pro-Palestine student protests on university campuses. US police have arrested hundreds of students this week as university campus administrators seek to repress pro-Palestinian encampments and protests. The Prime Minister questioned whether such a move was part of US democracy. The biggest thing is that 900 students and teachers have been arrested for staging pro-Palestinian demonstrations. It has happened in the US, it's part of US democracy, and we have to hear that too, she told a news conference. It is a real misfortune to listen to lectures on human rights from the US, she added. The US should take care of their human rights situation first. Hasina, shut up. This is embarrassing. Like, on the one hand, based for saying this to the US, based, but on the other hand, your country is in the news for what your country and its police forces and military are doing to Bangladeshi students. This wasn't that long ago. This was in May you said this. It's July now. That's what? 2 months? In 2 months. It's fucking disgraceful. She continued, Sheikh Hasina did, it is a real misfortune to listen to lectures on human rights from the US. The US should take care of their human rights situation first. Reiterating Bangladesh's firm stand for Palestine, Hasina said Dhaka is with Palestine and it will send more humanitarian support to Palestinians. What is happening in Gaza is genocidal, she said. I've just included that just to give you the exact flavour of the kind of person that runs the Awami League at the moment, who's at the head of the Awami League. That's the flavour of the kind of person she is. And we're going to take a very whiplashing U-turn into what has happened since, the beginning of July. So on 11th of July 2024, the New York Times released an article saying tens of thousands of students protest job quotas in Bangladesh's streets. Tens of thousands of students blocked the main streets of Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, on Thursday, demanding the quotas for civil service jobs to be abolished and those jobs given to candidates on the basis of merit. The protests broke out after a Dhaka court recently reinstated quotas for government jobs, which were abolished by a government order in 2018 following another countrywide student protest. The appellate division, I think that's how you say that word, the appellate division halted the new ruling for 4 weeks on Wednesday, but did not quell the demonstrations. Due to the quota systems, talented students cannot launch important jobs where talented people are required, like teaching at primary schools. Akram Hussain, who was among the coordinators during the anti-quota movement in 2018, said in a phone interview, Mr. Hussain, the 2018 protest coordinator who attended Thursday's demonstrations in Dhaka, said the current movement this time is more organized because 6 years ago students feared attacks from the student wing of the ruling party. He added that in 2018, organizers used fake social media accounts to spread the word about marches and other gatherings while dodging the government's eyes. Apart from the students of the University of Dhaka, the largest university in Bangladesh, students from other elite schools also joined in protests in cities Chattogram, Komila, Rajshahi, I've not heard of that school, and Sylhet. Student leaders said police officers used bullets and batons to disperse protesters at the Komila University in Komila, a southeastern Bangladesh city. We want the government to call for a special parliament session and take a decision about our demand, said Sarjis Alam, a coordinator of the current protest, said, his voice strained and cracking from relentless chanting. So that was the article from the New York Times. I just want to read out some headlines now, just so you can get a generalized view from reliable media sources of what's going on in Bangladesh. So Al Jazeera reported that in an article titled "Dozens Wounded as Bangladesh Students Protest Government Job Quotas," and that was published 3 days ago. The New York Times released another article 2 days ago saying Bangladesh deploys border force to try to quell student protests. The border force. A day ago, Al Jazeera published an article titled "Police Fire Tear Gas as Bangladesh Protests Against Job Quotas Rage." And those are some of the articles that have come out in recent times, like in the last few days. On the 17th of July, a couple of days ago, the Amnesty released an article titled "Bangladesh Witness Testimony, Video and Photographic Analysis Confirm Police Used Unlawful Force Against Protesters. Bashed heads, broken hands and fractured legs" was one of the subheadings in this article. Eyewitnesses that Amnesty International spoke with said that the protests were entirely peaceful before individuals from the BCL, or the Bangladesh Chhatra League, a group affiliated with the ruling party, the Awami League, started attacking them on 15th July. They claimed to have identified BCL members coming out of multiple residential halls in Dhaka University, particularly the Sujra Sen and Bijoy Ekator holes, armed with rods, sticks, and clubs, with a few even brandishing revolvers. The description of the violence against protesters is consistent with the previously documented reports by Amnesty International in 2023. Last year. Like, the violence now is consistent with the violence present at the protests last year. Amit, whose name has been changed for the purposes of the article, a protester who came under attack in the Dhaka University campus, said, "We had nothing in our hands. We only had placards and flags. They started throwing bricks at us and then with iron rods. They did not discriminate between man or woman. They kicked women in their breasts, in their stomachs, and on their heads." Amnesty International has verified videos of students being attacked on the street and inside hospitals, which corroborate the witness accounts. Another subheading in this article says, "The state launched the Chhatra League against us." A video verified by Amnesty International shows men waving their weapons while attempting to enter the Dhaka Medical College Hospital, the DMCH, on 15th July. Rima, name also changed for the purposes of the article, a master's student at Dhaka University, was one of the protesters who came under a second round of attacks at the DMCH where they were seeking treatment for their injuries. She said the police were there in the hospital, yet the BCL came into the emergency department and started attacking us again. The state launched the Chhatra League against us. Every time we rise up, be it the protests of 2018 or 2023, it is used as a force to crush us. As a student of Dhaka University, I expected my university's proctorial authority to ensure my safety. We were in front of the registrar building, and I saw some of the university's officials watching from above. We were trying to escape, but the office buildings were locked up. We pleaded to be let in, but no one opened the doors. It is not just failure. This is complicity in the BCL's violence. Another subheading in this article, his white shirt had been completely drenched in blood. Witnesses shared that a 22-year-old first-year student at Dhaka University was found lying on the street while vomiting incessantly and struggling to breathe. His white shirt had become completely drenched in blood. The witness said, "We recovered his phone from his pocket, which was completely smashed into pieces. Imagine the kind of force it needs to break a phone into pieces while it's inside someone's pocket." Abu Sayed, a 25-year-old student, was killed in the northwestern city of Rangpur in 2 videos verified by Amnesty International. At least 2 police officers discharged 12-gauge shotguns directly towards him from across the street. Sayed clutches his chest on impact as officers fire at least 2 more times. Amnesty International used satellite imagery to geolocate the positions of Sayed and the police officers and found that they were at a distance of about 15 meters during the shooting. Also, Sayed posed no apparent physical threat to the police. Sayed's death certificate states he was brought dead to the hospital. Derek Pounder, an independent forensic pathologist who examined the photos of the wounds to Sayed's chest, told Amnesty International that the wounds were consistent with birdshot. This was a seemingly intentional, unprovoked attack on an individual posing no threat to police officers using ammunition designed for hunting, which is extremely dangerous and unlawful for use in the policing of protests, says Takbir Huda. She says also in a statement, Bangladeshi authorities must fully respect people's right to freedom of peaceful assembly in line with its commitments under international law and its own constitution and protect peaceful protesters from further harm. Amnesty International considers the use of birdshot to be absolutely inappropriate and it should never be used in the policing of protest. Shotgun-fired cartridges containing metal pellets, including birdshot or buckshot designed for hunting, can penetrate the skin, causing serious injury. Their use has been associated with deaths and multiple cases of blinding in Egypt, India, and Iran. We urgently call on the government of Bangladesh to rehabilitate all those injured and ensure they receive proper medical treatment. The authorities must also ensure that all those engaged in the attacks on peaceful protesters are held to account and that impartial, independent and swift investigation is conducted against these attackers, as well as the police officers who have directly perpetrated or failed to prevent such breaches of the law, said Takbir Huda. A few more article headings. I'm becoming very exhausted because this is insane levels of like political injustice. I'm becoming extremely exhausted because this is about my country, this is about my people. I don't even really know what to say at this point in the video. I'm going to read some article headings and then maybe we can just have a little bit of a chat at the end. Bangladesh quota protests updates. Students vow shutdown as 19 killed. Al Jazeera article. AP News article. 19 more die in Bangladesh clashes as student protesters try to impose a complete shutdown. This happened 22 hours ago as of today, the 19th of July. Bangladesh internet goes dark as widening protests kill 39. That one's from Bloomberg. It's war now. As Bangladesh quota protests escalate, what's next? Al Jazeera. From Variety, Bangladesh internet in total shutdown amid student protests and dozens of deaths. Things are really turning bad. The Guardian, Bangladesh imposes communications blackouts as protest violence continues. And finally, AP News, as of 2 hours ago, Bangladesh security forces fire bullets and sound grenades as protests over government jobs escalate. I'm going to put this to a side now because Jesus Christ. As I mentioned at the top of this video, stuff like this in Bangladesh has been going on probably since before I was born. Definitely since before I was born. And they are continuing today on students. Students are usually underage or in their, young adult age. They are not responsible for Bangladesh's ills or the things that Bangladesh has gone through and do not deserve this treatment. I believe this goes without saying. However, since Hasina is so critical of the way the US treats its students, perhaps she should look at how she is treating Bangladesh's students. At this current juncture, I haven't found many sort of support links or sort of organizing material or resources, so if you could please send me those, I would really, really appreciate it. I am still trying to keep up with all of this, but I'm mainly making this video to just inform you on what's been going on in Bangladesh if you are confused, because it is a little bit of a confusing political, especially in the two-party political situation up top. It sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like a living hell, actually. And I hope that, justice is brought against these really, really corrupt political parties. And hopefully I've quantified the level of corruption of those political parties by just disseminating recent articles from the beginning of this year to now. That's all I really wanted to say today. I don't really have much more to give you. I'll leave the sources for the articles in the description below, and hopefully once my channel manager returns we can edit this into something watchable. For the moment, this is what I have for you. I am so sorry for all the little reading slip-ups and not having a lot of commentary. I am still really trying to process all of this and trying to understand it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Share this video if you know people who want to be informed about this stuff. And yeah, just let me know. Let me know what you think, and please, please, please raise awareness about this. The people of Bangladesh, and certainly the students of Bangladesh, deserve better. They deserve much, much better, especially because of what the martyrs of Bangladesh sacrificed for an independent Bangladesh. And we'll go over that in a longer video than this, that covers more of Bangladesh, because it really, really does just need spelling out. When I was younger, I'll just go into this a little bit. When I was younger, like when I would say I was from Bangladesh, I was like a little kid, like 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. People didn't even know what Bangladesh was, and when I tried to explain it to them, they would be like, oh, so it's Pakistan, so it's India, so it's just Asia. And it's just like, Bangladesh is a very young country. Bangladesh has had a lot of political turmoil in its still early days. Like, I don't even think the country has existed for 100 years yet. So it is a very, very young nation that has seen a lot of bloody political conflicts, as well as just poor treatment by global governments. And I believe it deserves, a little bit of attention and respect and care. So that's all I'm really here to say today. Thank you for joining me. I apologize for my reading, and I apologize for the 1950s-esque setup of this video. I'll see you guys later.